Bjorn, it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today. First of all, I just want to ask, how are you doing? How are you and your family coping amid the COVID-19 crisis?
Well, I'm very privileged. I'm quarantined in my summer house, which is in the archipelago of Stockholm. I'm surrounded by sea, and it's very nice and quiet out here. I read a lot. I look at movies. I look at documentaries. I write, do various things. So for me, it's been really okay. But the funny thing is, I drove through Stockholm the other day, and to me it seemed like normal. Everything's gone back to normal in Stockholm, and of course we have more deaths than anyone else per capita. Is what I understand. Oh, nothing to laugh about, but anyway, it's ironic. But for me, this has been a period where I've been able to contemplate and think about things, and think about what's the future going to look like.
It's so interesting, Bjorn, that you're talking about when you drive around Stockholm, because, of course, the whole world was surprised that Sweden didn't take tougher measures on the lockdown. Why do you think they made that decision?
What they said was that they trust in us, the citizens, to do what's right, and they said that this would be the right thing to do, and they thought we'd act accordingly, which most of us did, I think. To begin with, it sounded as a very civilized way of quarantining, but then we've had so many deaths, so I think it's early days yet. We have to see. I mean, it's going to take at least half a year or so before we can decide whether our route was a good one or a bad one.
Well, they did, as you say, they kept things open, the restaurants, the bars. Do you think that has been the right approach?
We'll have to wait and see what the right approach was, because the nature of this virus is that we don't know very much about it. So it's too early to say. It might be that once Britain opens up again, you will have equal, proportionally amounts of death per million as we've had. But again, nobody knows. It's just trying to control the influx of of patients into the health service. I think that has been the main concern, because our health service, as well as the NHS, was not built for a pandemic like this.
Were you yourself surprised, Bjorn, that they weren't stricter?
No, I can't say I was, because in the beginning, everyone seemed to be taken by surprise, and there was panic. And some people chose that way, and some others chose another way. And it's so dependent on, the culture of the country, the discipline of the people, and their trust in institutions. All that comes into play. And we won't know the true answer until in a year, perhaps.
And do you think, you said it looked like it was quite normal, Stockholm. Do you think you're getting there now and going forward to this new normal that everyone seems to be talking about?
I certainly hope so. I think it looks a bit scary that people seem to be taking chances all over the world, actually. They might be too early, but then again, who's to say? It's a very strange disease, this too. I mean, we thought it was a normal flu, but more lethal. But then again, I'm a layman. I'm not an expert like Trump.
Do you think Trump is the expert, Bjorn?
Well, he claims he is. He claims he knows more about this than anyone else.
And what do you think?
Well, I don't know him, so I wouldn't know.
And what have you been keeping yourself busy with? Have you been creative as well beyond in lockdown? Because I know we saw you on the Eurovision,
Yeah.
which very sadly, for the first time in its history, had to be cancelled this year. But you, of course, made that wonderful contribution. How was that for you?
It was. I was very proud and moved that they should ask me to say a few words, because I thought it was kind of sad. It's such a long tradition now to have the Eurovision final, and it's yeah. I kind of was inspired, and I thought of my grandson, and how he and I had looked at that clip from the Eurovision, and he said, "Granddad, are you pop star?" It's so funny.
That must have been a wonderful moment for, for him to see you, to see Grandpa, performing like that.
He was not impressed.
Oh,
It was more like, nah, I don't think it's you.
but could you go back to that moment, Bjorn? Could you go back to that memory when you were performing there? Could you ever have imagined the success after that moment?
No, of course not. It was literally, success overnight. And very few people, experienced that, I think. Because we were the poor cousins from the country, coming from way up north in Sweden, where nothing good came out of. No pop music, nothing at that time. And we came, and everyone watched, and we won. And then it was chaos. And then I woke up the next morning, and that's when it dawned on me what a momentous thing that had been. Because I sort of woke up to world fame, as it were. And I was the poor cousin from the Nordics the day before. So it was a fantastic feeling.
How did you cope with that kind of fame and all the attention and everything it brought?
It wasn't so hard, actually, because we were Swedes, and we were living in Stockholm, all four of us, and people knew us since 8-10 years back. We were quite famous in Sweden, and so they had learned to live with us. So it became, we were more normal people to the people in Stockholm than to anywhere else in the world. So I used to go to the supermarket, in my clogs, and Agneta too, and everyone, it was a full supermarket, everyone knew who we were, but no one would bother us. I decided early on, I am not going to let this change my life in the wrong way. I'm going to go on leading the life I want. I won't barricade myself behind walls or anything. And it does work. Lots of those people who think, oh, now I must have an entourage and live behind walls because I'm so famous. It's a game. It's not true. They don't have to. Not in this country, at least.
And of course, the success has sustained many different generations, Bjorn. And, even recently, Waterloo was voted the UK's most popular Eurovision song. You still have so much success with your music around the world. When you look back at that, when you made the decision to break up as a group, do you think that would have happened? Could you have imagined that it would have continued even though you guys had broken up?
No. I remember it well. I mean, the beginning of the 80s, first 5 years or so, we were totally not cool. I don't even think that the radio used to play our songs a lot, very little. And I thought, this is the end of it. Well, we had a good time, and we sold a lot of records, but now it's probably the end of it. But then towards the end of the 80s, there was a kind of resurgence for various reasons. People started to record our songs again, and ABBA Gold, the compilation, was released, and then so all of a sudden we were back, and it's been like that since, and it's amazing. We should be talking right now. I mean, this is totally against the odds. And I get, I was so touched because I was 75 a while ago, and I got this video message where someone had collected young girls from various parts of the world saying happy birthday to me, like 13, 15-year-old girls, and lots and lots of them. And I'm totally amazed, that they should be like that, because it seems a lot of young people listen to us for some reason.
They certainly do. And Bjorn, when was it a hard decision when you look back at that time? Was it a tough one to break up?
No, the band wasn't difficult because it was not a definite split up. It was just going separate ways for a while and intending to come back together again at some point and do some more stuff. Only it took a while. So at the time, it wasn't that difficult because we knew we'd be together again. But then somehow that never happened.
And did you start to miss each other or miss performing and creating together, Bjorn, or you were still obviously always in touch?
We were always in touch. But Benny and I went on writing together, and so that never stopped, really. And Agneta and I have, grandchildren together, 5 of them. So we get to see each other quite often, actually. And Benny I see, and I talk to him, at least once a week. And Frida comes up to Stockholm and says hello.
And how are they all doing, Bjorn? How are they doing at the moment?
Oh, very well, very well.
Yeah.
We're all doing very well. Yeah, there is a strong bond.
It must be very, very special to have that. And of course, there's so many ABBA productions around the world. We have ABBA the musical in the West End, which of course has had to take a break now. You've got the museum in Stockholm. There's Avatar that hopefully, you're working on. There are so many different ABBA interests. Is that something that's very positive and good for you personally, Bjorn?
I think taking care of your legacy in a positive way, when you feel you'd like to go on to new experiments, like doing a musical based on the songs. Nobody had done that before. And Mamma Mia the Party, which is a party situation, which is another format again. And doing a movie was interesting. So all the things, and the museum was interesting. Not a lot of people did that. So if you look at all the stuff that we've done based on our songs, it's always been a new direction for each one.
What about the musical we just talked about? Obviously, the West End is closed. Do you think that it could reopen this year, Bjorn? Are you worried about it?
Yes, I think it's going to take a long time before people, can sit together a couple of inches apart in an auditorium, because people who do that, people who go to the theater, that's an average age of 51, and most of them are between 64 and 75. I looked this up, and those are the most vulnerable ones, and the people who will hesitate most to go to the theater again. So I think, and space them out. It'll look like a half full house, and it's not the same thing. I think an audience is like a living organism. It should be a full house and of excited people who experience something together and feel, one sit next to me laughing at the same time as I do, and stuff like that. It cannot be replaced.
What about the bigger impact you think this crisis has had on the music industry itself?
Well, a big impact. Like artists nowadays, they earn between 60 and 70% from touring. And that's completely died. Live Nation is not, have cancelled everything this year. So those artists are seeing their income cut by 70%. And so that's going to be a change in the music industry, because I think I can see artists going to the music companies saying, we want a bigger slice of the cake. We're not touring anymore, so we want some more. That is going to be a change. And people tried streaming from their homes and singing their songs, but I mean, it gets boring after half a song, I think. That's no replacement for the real thing. Yes, big change in that respect in the music industry.
Talking about streaming, Björn, of course, ABBA released the vinyl collection, which has done so well and selling out and releasing more. I mean, streaming wasn't around when you started together, but do you think that the artists are paid fairly?
No, I think they could be paid more. There is a cake, you know, and there are different people, different players take slices of the cake. And these slices have to be modified, I think, so that those who create the songs, who sing, who play, all the creators, I'm one of them. I feel for them, and I think in the future we should have a larger slice, all of us together.
And of course, you set up the app session, which is to help songwriters.
Yes, that is currently working to integrate it with workstations that are used in studios. So and also for songwriters, so that they can register their works while they're in the process of working. One of the big problems today is there are 10, 15 writers on one song, and maybe that song isn't released until a year after it's been written, and people forget. I was promised 25%. You've only given me 15. No, I want 25. You know, conflicts like that, which means that the writers are not being paid at all. Money goes into a black box. So session is about collecting data relevant to writing and recording in the creative process from source. So what's in session with all the codes and all the registration numbers is going to be the truth about that particular work.
And how do you think technology as a whole has helped or hindered the industry?
Pop music, for instance, has always been very driven by technology. Like I remember when we were active with ABBA, Benny he got the first synth. He had the first mini Moog. It was a little synth that he, lots of buttons on it, and you can hear it actually. I think it's one of the first mini Moogs is on a song called SOS.
Yes.
It's leading up to the chorus of SOS. That's a mini Moog. That was one of the first. And then he had, we had everything. We built our own studio. So technology is driving pop music and driving the music industry as well. Not only musically, but of course, it's going to help writers and everyone to get their money quicker, fairer, and with more transparency. That's what technology will do for the music business in the future, I think, because it's still quite old-fashioned and it's very, very complex.
Yeah.
So it needs to be more transparent.
Of course, Björn, also concerts, live production, tours have all had to stop now. And when it does return to what everyone's calling the new normal, how do you see it? Do you see it changing in a way?
What I see happening right now would be that writers and artists are concentrating much more on what's really important, and that's the song. That's very interesting because with ABBA, during the 10 years that we were together, we toured 6 months altogether because we thought, or we knew that it all starts with a song, and you have to spend a lot of time and care writing and recording songs. So I think now that they can't tour, this is what a lot of artists will do. So maybe in the next half year, we'll see a lot of good songs being streamed. But I think that people who want live concerts, they will have to wait until maybe February, March. Then again, there might be a vaccine earlier than that. Who knows?
Talking about songs, Bjorn, I know this is probably a tough question to ask because, of course, there were so many amazing ones. But is there any personal favorite of yours from ABBA? And is there a reason?
You know, I remember them from various periods because we always tried to develop for each album and try to make it slightly different. So that means that I have favorites from the early period, from the middle, from the end, and so forth, and not just one. I've been asked this question a lot, as you can imagine, and
of course,
I cannot think of one. It's just impossible. From the early period, I still think Mamma Mia is a great recording and a great song. And in the middle period, what have we? Dancing Queen, Knowing Me, Knowing You. And towards the end, why not The Winner Takes It All? So you have three.
Well, Cher, of course, has just released a version of your Chiquitita with the proceeds going to UNICEF in the battle against COVID-19. How does that make you and the band feel?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's great. I mean, we did this concert for UNICEF 35 years ago, something like that. I don't know. And that's when we gave away Chiquitita to UNICEF to help women and girls, the empowerment of women, which I think is the most important thing of all, everything UNICEF can do. And you know, that has brought in something around 4 or 5 million pounds over the years. And now I said to one of Cher's assistants, I said, tell her to do Chiquitita in Spanish. People will go crazy about that. And they did. So I was really happy to hear about that. And she does a very good version as well, though she doesn't speak Spanish. I don't think she does.
Of course, you've talked a lot about this very special bond that you have with the other members of the band. And you have been in the studio together, I believe, recording 2 new songs. When do you think you would release them, Bjorn?
I've said it so many times, and it's been delayed. But the only thing I can say now is that I think sometime this year. Yes, I think so.
And what was the experience like when you were back in the studio together?
Oh, that was so great. It was really lovely. We came into the control room, the 4 of us. There was the engineer as well, and then the 4 of us. For the first time in I don't know how many years, 40 years. And we kind of looked at each other, you know. What is this? What's happening? Because, you know, it's like took half a minute and somehow we were back in time, like we had been there yesterday as well. It was so strange. We felt so familiar to be there, all the 4 of us. Looking different, of course, but feeling the same. And feeling those strong bonds. And knowing that we had gone through so much together and that the things that had happened even after we split up, made us all, makes us all amazed and just looking at it and wondering why. And that feeling between us was, extraordinary.
Bjorn, you have so many fans around the world. I mean, the whole world. All they want to see is an actual proper ABBA reunion. Wouldn't that be wonderful to announce? Could you ever consider, you did say that when you broke up, you thought you would get back eventually together. So could it be in the future?
A real ABBA reunion of us on stage performing? No, yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, and what about for you, Bjorn, so far? You've achieved so much in your life and career so far. What have you been most proud of?
What a good question. Is that one thing, apart from, my children, my grandchildren, and you mean in my professional life?
Yes, I think both, of course, personally, professionally.
Yes. Well, there have been many, many kicks. I remember all the kicks we had, Benny and I, while writing. Suddenly realizing, hang on, what is this? This must exist already. No, it doesn't. What the hell? And then realizing, this is fantastic. This is so good. Those kicks were absolutely marvelous, especially in the beginning, But the one thing, it's again very, very hard to say. We wrote a musical in Swedish called Christina, and I wrote the words, and it was based on a novel by a very famous Swedish author. And I wrote the words, and I tried kind of to emulate his language, to put his language into mine, sort of. And he was an icon, national icon, and I thought I would be thrashed. But so I had planned to go to Rome that night. We opened in Malmo in the south of Sweden. I planned to go to Rome straight after the performance to get away from all the horrible reviews. Then it was the other way around, and that was a very proud moment.
And of course, personally, your family, your children and your grandchildren.
Oh, yes. Yes, there are 8 grandchildren now, from 3/4 of a year to half a year to 18.
And after this pandemic, Bjorn, how do you think it will change the world and also you personally?
I've been thinking about this a lot because my wife has a weak immune system because of a form of leukemia. She's well and so forth, but weaker immune system. And that means that we cannot get this infection. So this will naturally, affect our lives, my life, for the foreseeable future. Okay. So I'll be doing a lot of these things, I have already like 4 or 5 Zoom meetings a day. Yeah. And it works quite well. I mean, somehow it becomes quite personal when you do it like this. Yeah. It's not quite the same thing, but almost. So I will have to be very, very careful for the foreseeable future. But if it really dies down, then I'll try to live a normal life again. For the world post-corona, we haven't seen nothing yet. We haven't seen what the economy will do. We have, that's not going to bite, I think, until maybe the end of the summer or so. And that's really scary. Yeah. But then there might be a second and a third wave of the infection. So we go into a different world. And, not a day goes by without me thinking, trying to have a kind of vision of what will that mean? What's happening and what's going to happen? But it's very, very difficult. And I haven't read anyone who says who has predicted something which sounds credible.
Björn, just finally, when you look back now to those early years, the success and the sustained success, the enormous global popularity of ABBA, what is your feeling now?
I feel grateful and humble. That's what it does to you. You know, it's very humbling to know everything that's happened and is happening. So humble first of all, grateful, and then how and why me? Those are the feelings, because it's you know, to take in emotionally, it's very difficult. To know that I think it's about 60 million people have seen Mamma Mia the musical, for instance, around the globe. To imagine all those theaters filled with people sitting there watching something that I wrote ages ago, that's weird, surreal, and very hard to take in emotionally. But my wife says, good. Maybe it's good that it's hard, because otherwise you'll get really, you know, like an old pop star should be, very puffed up diva.
Well, Björn, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and such a privilege to talk to you today. And we send all our good wishes from London to stay safe and stay well for all the family.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.